Buddy, it is Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday, March 21st. I had to look at my watch because I feel like this year things are changing by the minute.
Yeah. And where did March go? I feel like it was March 1st yesterday and now it's the 21st. I don't really know what happened.
I feel like it was March of 2022 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
The time is like flying, which is really weird. So,
It is.
but okay, so I don't know about you, but in the last week, I've seen the market. I'm not going to say go crazy because this is still, to me, not like it was like the last 2 years, but it feels like it went crazy from where it's been the last 6 months for sure.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that
Like
too?
in the last week, I feel like it is March of 2022.
It's crazy. Like, it's like all the buyers woke up all of a sudden. And I mean, I know like rates went down a little bit. Like they're like somewhere between 5.99 and 6.2. No one who's in lending, please yell at me for that. Consult a lender if you have questions. But I don't know what's causing. I mean, first of all, we're in our busy season. Like we need to never forget that. And I feel like that's the biggest thing that the last couple years every real estate agent has just like cried chicken little, the sky is falling, and completely forgotten about the fact that like fourth quarter and end of third quarter are horrible for the real estate market. It does not matter what's going on in the economy or in the world. End of third quarter, fourth quarter suck.
Yeah.
So they did. And now here we are in January, February, end of Q1, I had to count. And it's doing what it's supposed to do, which is
get busier,
you know? And I don't know. I feel like this is exactly what we predicted. I feel like we said we didn't think it was going to be as pronounced, not as crazy as 2022, but you know, there's still no inventory, and that the minute that the buyers came back out in the spring, that the market would pick back up, and that's what it's doing.
Yeah. And I think right now, like comps are all over the place. And if you're pulling comps from last month or 2 months ago, you are doing it wrong. Your comps right now, you better be picking up a phone and calling the other agents that are currently under contract to find out what they're under contract for, because that's the only way you're going to get a good barometer on what's really going on in your market. Like I have a listing up north of where Lindsay is in Aurora, and I've had agents calling me all day, like for the last like 2 weeks, because we have a house that's under contract up there for 400. It's a little townhouse that we renovated. And there's another one in the neighborhood for 325. And so these agents are like, where'd you get your number? I'm like, we're closing this week at 400. So I don't know where they got their number from. But it's all over the place. So just know that if you're getting an appraisal back that says that it's coming in low or it's a declining market, you need to show them the data again. That's where we're at. We're back at, you need to train the people that are providing values, because they don't know. They're not actively selling in the market. They're just seeing numbers. And so they don't know what to do with it yet until it becomes normal.
Well, and you're so right. I actually never thought of that before, that appraisers are like 30 to 60 days behind what the market is physically doing. So like we know buyers and sellers are 60 to 90 days. The news is like 6 months behind what the market's doing. But I never thought about the fact that appraisers are like a couple months behind what the market is actually doing, because they don't see the contract until 2 weeks, 30 days later.
Right. They're behind.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And so you're going to start seeing people that are under contract, and at inspection, they're asking for massive amounts of concessions, and listing agents are like, see ya. Because that's what just happened to us. Like, you know, they tried to go under contract and then they were asking for like 20 grand at inspection. And we were like, bye, not going to happen. Like, that's not our market anymore. You can't do that stuff. There's somebody else that's willing to go back in and offer more, or we have backup offers now. Like, there's all kinds of crazy stuff that's going on that reminds us of yesteryear.
But what's wild about that is that in a lot of cases, when the property went under contract, it was that market.
Right.
1,000,000%. So 30, 45 days ago, when a property went under contract, we were begging for offers, right?
Yeah.
And now in a lot of situations, depending on the price point, the house, the location, right,
Yeah.
we're not, and we might have backup offers or multiple offers. And so as a buyer's agent, super good point, Angela, you also have to be really careful and really know the market right now. Also, I would tell you, and I do this on the buy side, I'm sure you do too, but I don't know how many people do. You should be calling the agents that have deals under contract when buy side, and you should be saying, how much did you give in concessions, how much did you do on inspection, right? Because
Right.
that'll help you get a pulse for what's actually happening too. Because right now, like, that's happened on several of my deals, right? Where when we put it under contract, we had no one, we were begging for an offer. The buyer's agent and the buyer, rightly so, came in with a massive inspection objection because that was the market when they purchased the house.
Right.
It isn't right now. And now we have backup offers and we can tell them to go fly off a roof, right? So,
Right.
yeah, super solid point there.
Yeah. I mean, we're definitely back to seeing not just the multiple offers, but the escalation clauses, here's a free cruise, here's a gift card to your favorite restaurant, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Here's, your favorite chocolates and wine and whiskey, Mr. Realtor. Like, that's the market we're back to, 3 and 4 and 5 offers again on properties. I had 76 showings in 48 hours on one of my properties. I'm like, I don't even know. Like, if you know there's that many showings, just send an offer, right? If you really want the house, like, just send an offer. But like, people are buying based on pictures again. And so staging is really important, and how you present the house is really important. That doesn't mean that if your house is overpriced, it's going to sell for that. It means you still have to price it competitively to bring in people to get those multiple offers. And you need to show your house the best possible way that it can be shown, especially if you're in a higher price point. People are expecting that house to be immaculate.
Yeah, so I'm not seeing it quite as bad here yet, but our average price point is about $200,000 different from each other, I would say. So, but like, everything that I showed over the weekend to clients and last week is gone.
Yeah.
I had, like, on my last listing, I had like 15 showings and 3 offers, and it went $5,000 above list.
Yeah.
So it's not hundreds of thousands of dollars, but we are back to being able to at least, cherry pick the right buyer.
Right.
Ask for things like limited inspection, appraisal provisions in some cases. So, but I feel like it's heating up here.
Yeah.
Too. Like, I'm curious to see what this weekend will bring. I took my clients to a showing over the weekend, and they were doing an open house while we were there, and it was like standing room only.
Yeah.
It was so busy. Lower price point. Our upper price points. Okay, so I actually was going to calculate this, and I'm going to post it later today because it's going to be kind of interesting. Every buyer that I've put under contract in the last 30 days, I would say I've gotten 3 to 5% off the house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then every seller I've had, I think, maybe negotiated less than that.
Mm.
And then now all of a sudden, like, the multiple offers are back. So I don't know what that's going to do. I'm so frustrated. I don't even, like, I feel like this is the dumbest thing that's ever happened. It's literally herd mentality. It's that old joke of, like, your mom when she was like, if everyone else jumped off the roof, would you too?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, apparently America's population would, because the last 2 years, when people were willing to pay $100,000 above already crazy high prices, everyone was going to do it. And over the last 6 months, when I got my buyers like crazy deals, like hundreds of thousands of dollars off a house, nobody bought.
Right.
And now all of a sudden they all want to buy again, and guess what it's causing? Same old shit. And I'm like, what is wrong with you?
Like, you're gonna start seeing, like, if you can see me right now, you can see that this is a realtor that has ripped off her fingernails because she has no time to go and get her nails done. I haven't had Botox in like 6 months. Like, I'm a mess because we're that busy. If your realtor is not busy like this and they're not in the market, like, you got to find somebody that knows what's going on. I literally just went to a listing appointment the other day, and they are in the 700s price point, and they have had like no showings on their property. It's a huge house. It's in a school district that's highly desirable, and they've got nothing. And it's because their house is unfinished. Like, it's not it's not done the way it should be for that price point. It's not staged. The pictures are not professional. Like your first impression when you walk in is not a good one. But it's being marketed that way. And that's not what you need at that price point or any price point. You need an aggressive shark agent. You just can't get by with passive aggressive agent, right? It's just not going to be.
I will caveat that though with there are absolutely some sellers out there. So buyers right now think that they can get 300 grand off the price of the house.
Oh,
While
yeah.
the sellers think that it's still, March of 2022. And so I will caveat that, like, if you're an agent, like I have two that I'm struggling with right now, I'll just be super honest. They refuse. One of them has been a knockdown drag out about where they realistically, because unfortunately the price in their neighborhood is actually down $100,000 from where it was last year. Every single comp is down 100. And if they would have listened to me and priced where they should have, they probably would have received multiple offers and gotten above what the other comps were. So, if you're an agent and you are struggling with properties that are sitting, like, I don't want you to feel like we're saying you suck, you're bad, because there are, I would say as an agent, the last 6 months for me have been the hardest conversations I've ever had in my career. So back in like 2008, during those conversations about needing to price were easy because everyone knew what the economic climate was. Everyone knew that they were going to, walk away from properties and bring cash, tens of thousands of dollars to closing. They knew they were upside down. That, you know what I mean? And so it's the shifting market, not the shifted market, that sucks. And so the last 6 months have been really, you've had to go like head to head with a lot of your sellers saying you're not going to get that price. And a lot of agents, myself included, have lost listings over it, and those houses didn't sell, and it is what it is. And maybe they have a chance now as the market's picking back up. I don't know, we'll see. But if you're struggling with having conversations, like I do think that's kind of okay, because it's been tough. Like, there are some clients out there that will absolutely refuse to price it where it needs to be priced right now.
Yeah, no, I have one I'm taking off the market here this week because they bought, not from me, another agent, at the very top of the market last year. And they're like, we got to sell this house. We don't love the area. We want to move north. I'm like, I mean, we're going to do our best. We're going to have to like make this house the nicest house on the planet, but we weren't getting showings, and there's nothing we can do. We can't reduce the price because they're going to owe money and they don't have it. So there are those situations out there, but we're going to start seeing those people that bought last year and the year before that are like top of the market buys that are now putting their house in the market and they have no equity. So they have to sell at the top of the market. So that might be driving too.
I have a short sale for the first time in like 10 or 15 years, probably. I had to call my broker over the weekend and go, okay, I just need, like, I haven't seen this in so long. I know this is really dumb because I used to do short sales. That was what we did all day long, every day. But this net sheet is showing negative $30,000. So I just need to be confirming, because I haven't seen it in a while, that means they're bringing 30 grand to the table, So yeah, that's going to start popping up. Absolutely. Unfortunately, too. I would say that and I always want to be really careful saying this, I would say that the toughest conversations I've had over the last 6 months, and I bet most agents would agree, are the people who missed the boat last year and they're angry with themselves about it. And it's not a dire straits. Usually when people are dire straits situations, they will actually take your guidance and they will listen to you because they need your help. The situations I'm seeing, and very respectfully, it is not, I always hear a bunch, agents say, well, my seller's making $400,000. What the hell does it matter if they lose $5 grand? It isn't our business what they do with that money. We have no idea what their financial situation is like. It's not our business. But I would say that the hardest conversations I've had over the last 6 months have been sellers who have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of positive equity, and they're upset because they maybe missed $20,000 to $100,000 more. So it isn't the dire straits people, for me, that are causing problems, but they're hard conversations to have right now. If you're a brand new agent, the only thing you've ever told people is how their value is going up by the month.
Yeah.
It's tough to get used to telling people that their value is going down by the month, or staying the same depending on where you're at. That's a very different, it's a totally different job.
Yeah, I bet we're going to see Like in the next 30 days, we're going to see just a ton of listings dump into the market because all of those people that didn't have enough equity and there was not enough comps to support the price they wanted, now all of a sudden we're going to start to see more comps and everybody's going to bum rush the market. I bet that's going to happen either in the next 30 days or the next 60 days. I think we're just going to see just an overwhelming amount of listings hit the market. And I mean, it is what it is. You can't just make your own prices, but at some point, like there is a little bit of there's no comp, so we're going to go with our gut on this one. And I feel like that's what we're seeing in our market. You brought up open houses. So how do you feel like open houses are going to come into play in this kind of a market again? Are people going to do them? What is the point of them? Do they work? How do you do them properly?
Lots of questions to unpack there. But first, I want to say, I also think that it's not just, I also think you're totally correct about inventory. I think the other reason that we might get mobbed with inventory is that the sellers are all panicked and they now feel like this is top of whatever the hell this is and they're all going to bail. And most of the clients that I'm working with, it's all cash grabs.
Mm-hmm.
They're all taking their equity and they're going to another state, to a dream property. They're downsizing. So yeah, totally agree. Open houses. So like in Colorado, we know that it's less than 1% likelihood that an open house will actually sell a property. In my opinion, it's always about advertising for the agent, which the agent should have that opportunity. It's part of the job. And even in that less than 1%, maybe I've seen one time a buyer buy a house from an open house. They didn't buy it with me though. They had an agent already. But I think the point of them is personally twofold. One, it's the agent's opportunity to capture more business off of the listing that they generated. And two, it's what we go back to when properties aren't moving. And so absolutely, that's why you've seen them over the last 6 months, because agents are reaching back into their bag of like, what the hell did we do to sell a house? I guess right. Open house is the first one, even though we know it doesn't sell the house. Mm-hmm. You do get to a point where you're like, what else can I do? Okay, I'll start doing an open house every weekend, Saturday and Sunday for you. I think the only difference right now is from what I saw over the weekend, they're being attended again.
Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing like long lines to get into them all over the country. So I'm thinking that maybe it's a way to control the crowd and get as many showings done at once as possible. But I never think that having 10 to 15 people in the house at the same time is going to be the best way to show your house. So it's almost like you still need to stagger it because it's not really fair to the buyers that are legitimately trying to buy the house. They can't see it. So how are they going to give value to it? It's just a big waste of time. Just a crowd control thing.
Well, you're so right, because that herd mentality thing is real. You know, when buyers see a really busy open house and they want it too, which is so weird to me, but at the same time, it causes people to, like you said, not be able to even look at it.
Yeah.
Or get really intimidated and not make an offer. So yeah, I don't know how you deal with that.
Yeah, I think that that's going to be something that we look at this spring, because I've got a listing that we're flipping right now in Littleton. It's going to be at 450, which is like the bottom entry level market into a very desirable neighborhood. So I think that's going to be one of those crazy big open houses that we're going to have to figure out how to stagger people. Not for COVID reasons, but because like you just can't see the house. Like it's just not the best way to show a home that you're trying to sell. So I think that that's going to be something that we're going to have to do is stagger the times. So
I agree. Okay, I have two questions. The first one I want to talk about is what your philosophy is, how you're pricing right now. And then the second one is mentally, emotionally, how you're handling things shifting again really quickly. But so pricing right now, so we were off last week because I was on vacation. Thanks for that, Angela. But maybe 2-3 weeks ago, this was not what we were seeing, right? We were still seeing this really slow, no offers kind of market, scary, like really scary, right?
Yeah.
And so back then we were talking about, be very careful. Like I had brought up that I saw this agent online who made this giant post about how every single other real estate agent in the city's listings are sitting for 30 days and hers are selling in 2. And we were talking about, be very careful that you're not the agent that is purposefully underpricing by hundreds of thousands of dollars just so you look cool.
Right.
And in a normal market, your days on market, that's not like a metric that anyone even cares to look at.
Yeah.
But now, so things are shifting back a little bit. So how are you pricing now? Are you pricing where you feel is appropriate, a little under, a little above? What are you thinking?
I am looking at the condition of the comps that are active in the market, that are currently under contract or active in that neighborhood. And I'm looking to see where my house compares to all of theirs. I'm calling those agents to find out how many showings they're getting, how many showings they're expecting, and when they're expecting to take an offer and what they're expecting their offers to be. And then I'm looking back 1 month, because I know the appraisers are going to look back 1 month. And then I'm going to kind of use my gut a little bit. Like, I'm going to go on a little bit of the higher side if my houses are looking nicer, which they typically are, because I won't allow that. I won't let my sellers not come out with their makeup on, basically. I want them to have like their house to look perfect when it hits the market, because I want there to be multiple offers, especially if we're up against a house that's not staged, not renovated, and we're in a similar price point. So while I am going a little bit over the comps, I'm not pricing high, as like, I don't want to go under contract at asking price. I want to go under contract above asking price. And so that's what I'm preparing my sellers for. That's what I'm preparing the house for. So typically I'm getting like in the 400 to 500 price point, I would say I'm getting 6 offers ish in 48 hours. All are well above asking. Appraisal gaps are included. Backup offers are happening. Escalation clauses, which I hate, are happening. And we're usually 20 grand above asking. No concessions.
Yeah, so I'm not sure we're there quite yet, although, okay, so, when my clients are asking me right now what the market's like on the seller side or what the market's like on the buyer side, my answer right now is it's extremely difficult for me to answer that for you, because it's so house specific right
Definitely,
now.
yeah.
Because it's 100% house specific. Like, we have a house up here that could look A++, like you're talking about, and they priced it moderately well, and it will sell with 50 offers and it'll go 20 or 30 above asking.
Yeah.
We have some houses that were priced incorrectly to begin with that are going 50 to 100 under asking. And then we have, I would say, like, the majority of houses that look good and are priced appropriately are getting 2-3 offers and they're going 5 to 10 over asking. Yeah. So it's almost impossible to tell people, buyers, like, what kind of a deal. I don't know what kind of deal you can get. It's literally house by house.
Yeah, it is house specific, because if the house looks the best, it's going to have the most action on it. And you're going to be able to see that as a buyer walking through these different houses. I think you're not going to get your first choice anymore. You're going to have 2 and 3 choices for homes. That's what we're in. This is called spring market. That's what it's like,
But the sellers have to price appropriately. That's the thing, is like I said, there's still a few out there that I'm seeing where listings that went on the market in my market between like October and end of December, you'll get 100 grand off, even right now.
Yeah.
Because for some reason, I'm calling it like the doldrums. Like, they just sat there and nobody's buying them. And
right.
Literally, I have seen these same exact floor plan, same exact model actually look nicer than the one that's on the market for a ridiculously good price, come on higher, and everyone goes to buy that one just because it hasn't been sitting there. So
listings get stale, right? Like, people might just buy the house and just live there and do no upgrades. But if you haven't put any money into it, how in the hell are you expecting to get more money out of it than the person that's just dropped 40 grand to make their house nicer, and now they're getting an 80 grand return? There's a reason why your home is your biggest investment. And if you're not treating it like an investment, and you're just treating it as a rental, you're probably not going to get the same return as your neighbors, right? Like, seems like pretty easy math to me, but I feel like that's a big deal right now. I think sellers feel like they don't have to do anything. And yes, it will still sell, but you're going to be leaving 30, 40 grand on the table, potentially more.
And you are going to see some concessions sometimes, and you are going to still see, some inspection items for sure that you have to work through. And like I said, it's just so house specific, a lot of it depending on price, but we do really have to still be careful with our sellers, because they're hearing that the market is heating up.
Yeah.
And they think that it's going to go back to the last 2 years. Is it going to? I don't know. It very well could. It looks like it might, but it also might not. And you could get stuck with one of those listings that takes it in the shorts because of it.
Yeah.
So
Well, I feel like it's a weird situation for, all of those people last year that were like, it's going to completely tank. We're just waiting for it to bottom out. It's going to bottom out next year. It's January this year, and I don't think it's still bottomed out yet. I'm like, I think you guys are idiots. I think you should have bought in December. We're going to wait. We think it's going to bottom out around May. Where do you pull that shit out of? You guys are wrong. You just cost yourselves hundreds of thousands of dollars, and now you don't have an investment and you are not competitive anymore. Like, those are people that, like, I just don't get it. Like, agents are constantly trying to be the one with that, like, all of a sudden revelation of information. Like, it's not correct. Like, you're not watching your trends. You're just trying to be right, and it's not going to end well. And I feel like those people are starting to see that now.
I had buyers that got the craziest deals I've ever seen in my career over the last 6 months because sellers were so afraid that the market was going to bottom out this year, and they were being counseled by real estate agents that the market was going to come. Now, listen, yeah, we needed to tell our clients things were changing, but they were being counseled by agents that were telling them that this year was going to be 50. I mean, we read it in every post and every news article that this year was going to be horrific and that they better hurry up and sell. And so, like we talked about, I saw people making price reductions of $100,000 a week up here. And so some of my buyers got the craziest deals. They'll never probably see those again in their lifetime, right? Yeah. So this market, I think the only thing I can say is it's minute by minute, hour by hour, house by house. And you really have to dig in and do your work here. And like Angela said, call the agents on every deal, whether you're buying and selling, everyone who's got an active listing, everyone who's under contract, and y'all better be nice too. That's the other thing. Like, deals right now are getting done 100% on reputation alone. And like, I'm loving it right now. Every deal that I'm doing is kissy, kissy, huggy, huggy. Let's have drinks, right? Like, if you were mean and nasty over the last couple of years, good luck to you.
You were mean and nasty the last 6 months, probably not going to end well for you.
Good luck to you, honey, because we remember.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to just touch on really quick is, like, emotionally. So you brought this up. I hadn't thought about it until you said it, but I'm the same way. So I can tell in subtle different ways when my business is really, really busy. So I'm a single mom. And my mom and sister were over on Saturday night to watch a movie, and my mom was like, can I have paper towels for my pizza? And I looked in the pantry and I was like, oh, well, there are none. And then my sister was like, I need a trash bag to throw this pizza box away in. And we looked under the sink and we were like, oh, well, there are none. So like, when my house and my personal life, my car turns a mess, like things start to fall apart, my fingernails are chewed off, I don't have makeup on, right? Like, those are things I start to feel before I even notice how busy I am. And it is, like, I actually said that the other day. I was like, I kind of forgot how to work over the last 6 months because it's been really quiet. So like, how are you managing jumping back into, because the last 6 months we've been talking about how are you managing depression and anxiety of the market being terrible, and how are you taking care of yourself in, so you can get up every day and keep working. And now all of a sudden it's like, whoop, flip it again.
I mean, for self-care for me, like, I don't really eat lunch or breakfast ever because I'm too busy. So if I'm taking time out to go and take myself to lunch, that's self-care for me. If, like, right now, I'm like, I got to get away. I have to leave for a few days because it's too much. And I know it's going to cause all of a sudden the vacation effect where you have 8,000 clients that all want you before you leave, which is normal. But I have to get out of town for a few days and go out to the mountains and relax and get back to myself and find myself again and see my kids again. I feel like I'm getting home at like 8:00 at night. Like, it's not fun. And I've got clients that are like, oh, I don't want to call you on Sunday because I know you're off. I'm like, I'm fucking not off. I'm never off, unfortunately. So you're still calling me on Sunday anyway. It doesn't matter. But when you're trying to have the boundaries, this kind of a market is not a boundary market. You're just drinking water out of a fire hose again. And that's unfortunately what we have to do.
Well, there's two things that I'm kind of worrying about that I've been thinking about as you've been talking is, I guess, one, every real estate agent on earth is going to feel it's very difficult to hold their own boundaries right now. And that is because people have been in extremely, like, almost traumatic level. Actually, it is traumatic level. Let's just be honest. This has been a historical change in the markets, the fastest that a market's ever changed in history. So historically traumatic scarcity mode the last couple months, where, you know, they've really needed to have transactions moving so that they can continue in this business and pay their bills or take care of their families. And so when you go from that level of scarcity to a market that is moving again, and you don't like recalibrate yourself a little bit first, you're going to burn out. Oh my God, by the end of the year, like, you will be dead, because you're going to be running like it's the last 6 months, and then the market's going to run you ragged too.
Yep.
So I think that's going to be really scary. And then the other thing that worries me is financials twofold. So I hope that everyone has learned a lesson over the last 6 months that you need to be more financially careful, right? Like, people have been balling the fuck out the last couple years as real estate agents. You know, they need to learn about savings and paying, you know, all the different things, right? And so I hope that people learned that and that they're going to be more careful. But then I also hope that they're able to shift back really quickly if this does turn back into 2022, because while you need to be more careful with your financials and your expenses, and you just learned that, you also may need to go back to a space where you're hiring an assistant again, picking up a transaction coordinator, doing the chef at home, you know, like having the nanny for a couple hours. Like, this has been insane. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life, because we've just gone from like, yay, abundance, to like, oh my God, tighten the purse strings, hold on to literally every penny that you can, to like, I don't know what's going to happen now, to like, maybe this is a couple months of a bump, and then by the end of the year, we're back to what we don't know.
Yeah.
So you've got to be easily shiftable right now, is what I feel like it is, because you're going to kill yourself if we go back to where it was the last couple years and you don't have some kind of leverage or support.
Yeah.
You're also going to kill yourself if you over leverage and things don't stay this way.
Right. Yeah. I just didn't pull the trigger on a new vehicle because I want to be careful, because I don't know what things are going to bring, you know, like financially, like, we're good, we've got savings, but I don't know if this abundance market is going to stay. So I don't want to find myself, you know, the end of the year in a tough position. But the reason why I told myself why it wasn't a good idea was because this bank closure thing scared me a little bit, because I don't know what it means for our market. And I don't think we're going to know for a little while if it makes any kind of a difference or not. So
we probably should have talked about that. I forgot about that, because to me it was a non-issue. But yeah, I wouldn't have pulled the trigger on a car this year either. But then, okay, so like, again, my personal example, the last 6 months I've been really blessed, where, you know, I've been able to from scratch make meals for my kid every single night, because it has been quieter, and that's been amazing. But all of a sudden, here we are, and that's not going to happen. And so this week I'm like, well, we've eaten out fast food way too much, and so now I've got to go back to Green Chef, which is one of those like meal delivery services that I use. And yes, it's expensive, but I need the leverage right there, right now. And then I need to be able to turn it off again if things get dicey and I can't spend the stupid $300 a week on the pre-made meals, right? So you got to just be able to, like, I don't know, like,
you have to prioritize your time and what your time's worth. I think that,
and be flexible.
Yeah. I mean, when you start breaking it down to what you're making per hour, it's a lot easier to swallow, like to hire a cleaner, to hire, you know, people to help you live your life easier, and do those tasks that you just don't want to do. It's a lot easier when you break it down by hour. You know, let's say hypothetically you're paid $100 an hour for easy math. If you're paying somebody else, you know, $20 an hour to take some shit off your plate that you're not going to have to do for that hour, obviously it's worth it. So,
but right now, maybe your cleaner comes once a month instead of like every week, right? Because we're still trying to balance finances. We can talk about the bank closure really fast.
Yeah.
So I'm sure everybody saw this in the news. You know, that there were two banks that imploded that felt very much like the early 2000s, and the warning of that crash over the last couple weeks, with the government stepping in to provide assistance. Do you want to give your opinion on it?
I think that for my clients, it's not going to be a big effect to our market and our price point because the majority of my clients are not entrepreneurs. They don't have a ton of money in payroll companies that might bank with those big banks. Most of my clients are community banks or like Navy Federal, USAA, those type of banks that are not backed by that particular bank. So it hasn't really affected our market. I do know I talked to a title company the other day about it to see if they've had any issues, and they have had a few closings where they've been affected. Other agents, higher price points, where a payroll didn't get paid because it was the payroll company banked with those banks, and so he owned a business and his people didn't get paid, so he had to cough up a whole bunch of money out of his account, and he lost a lot of money. So he doesn't know. He's still kind of in limbo. He doesn't know if he can close in the house. And so that's going to be pushed back for that reason. But for my price point, most of my clients are military, so it's not really being affected by that. So mostly VA loans. But I would think that if you're doing conventional, like the stated income type stuff, often that might come into play. But for me, it hasn't. So how about for you?
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. I mean, I think that the news really made me angry with this one because I think they went in with the commentary on it super aggressively and made it absolutely sound like,
Right.
for context, back in the early 2000s when the world really was falling apart and we really were going into the Great Recession, the banks we were losing were countrywide, city, right? Like we're talking banks that right now would be equivalent to Wells Fargo, Chase, Bank of America, like the biggest lending institutions in the United States of America. These two banks that closed were much smaller. I would say they were more almost like boutique type banks. One of them, the Silicon Valley Bank, for sure was a bank that really funded high risk startup companies. So that's not a bank where people are going in and, making daily deposits and withdrawing checks. That's something that's affecting, like you said, like the upper echelon of investors and entrepreneurs and company owners. It's not affecting the day-to-day human. And it's frustrating because, like the people in my life that are close to me came to me and were like, well, here we go again. And it's like, that's not the case. And in a market and an economy like this, investors will always pull back from investing in high risk startups and companies. And so, yes, they were FDI insured banks, and the government, when it's FDI insured, that's the point. They have to step in and cover deposits up to $250,000, right? Yeah. But this isn't your bank where you go up the street and put your money in and take it out and your teller. Like these are for the uber rich. And so if you're in super luxury markets, maybe, yeah. If we start to see the bigger lending institutions faltering and struggling, that's scary. But I think we've already seen measures over the last 6 months that they're taking to not do that. Wells Fargo and Chase haven't underwritten a HELOC in months. Wells Fargo just made a huge move a couple months ago to completely back out of new mortgages and new mortgage servicing, right? So I think that I do believe that the country isn't stupid, and I do believe that we learned some stuff from 2008. I don't know how much, but I do think that these big banks have learned kind of how to like cut the bleeding a little bit before it starts. So I don't think that these two bank closures are going to affect the real estate market.
What I do think it will as we operate is I think that it will affect employment amounts. I think that if they lost a shitload of money, they might try to make it back in cutting salaries or cutting employees. And so that might be where it's affected. But I don't know. I mean, for my clients, I don't see that being an issue. I don't think the government itself is going to be, starting to make people drop their retirement packets for the military. But, for other markets, it might affect it a lot more than it's going to affect ours down here. So,
yeah, I mean, the higher end markets for sure.
California probably will be affected.
California, New York City, Seattle, right? So I also think that it could affect. So here's what I think. I don't think that it's a financial effect. I don't think we see that. What I think we see is an emotional effect in one of two ways. One, the people like my family who came to me and said, oh my God, the world is ending because these banks are closing. We need to know how to give them, like, this is a big talking point. If you don't know how to give your clients accurate information, you need to go research this like right now.
Yeah.
I think it's going to scare some of those people from buying, like normal people who are like, here we go again. 2008 is coming. We're just not going to buy. And then I also think that it could affect it could affect your company owners. It could affect your entrepreneurs, maybe even not the ones that are super upper echelon level, because maybe they're starting to worry about loans and their interest rates and things being tightened up on them. So I do maybe think it could have a little trickle down, but this is not a major bank. This is a very boutique bank that, you know, is being blown way out of proportion, in my opinion.
And I don't know
and yes,
we're going to see the trickle down from it for a while. I don't think that it'll be an immediate thing. We would have heard about it by now. I think that if there is a trickle down, it's going to be in a few months. So
I agree. I totally agree. I mean, I think that the biggest effect that it's going to have is just the fact that the news keeps piling negative thing on thing on thing on thing, which is creating scarcity in buyers' minds and making them not want to buy. So, and also, like you brought up earlier, creating scarcity in sellers' minds and making everyone want to list their properties, flooding the market with inventory.
And then it becomes,
you guys,
who's got the best house? Otherwise, you're not going to sell.
Yeah, but I mean, I've heard that in the last couple of weeks too from agents, like, well, the market's going to get flooded with inventory. I think that we talked about this 2 weeks ago. The biggest thing, the biggest weapon that a real estate agent needs to have right now is knowledge.
Yeah.
You need to go research what's going on with these banks. You need to research the inventory levels. Like you said earlier, you need to have your pulse on what the actual market, micro market, is doing in your area, right? And you need to know how to combat these things or tell people the truth, because it's just like shit stacking. The news is stacking thing on thing on thing on thing. It's like almost like they don't want people to be buying right now. And a bunch of people brought that up to me this last week. Well, we're going to get flooded with inventory. Cool. We still need it because we're still millions of housing units short in the United States. So if you're worried that maybe 10,000 houses come on in your market, we need it.
Yeah. When you start seeing open door houses selling for asking price, that's your key to know that the market is back.
Well, speaking of that, they're buying again. So very quietly, actually, Zillow Offers and Open Door have now combined. And over the last like 2 weeks, Zillow via Open Door has just started buying properties again.
Yep.
So, it's back. It's all back. So I have no idea what next Tuesday will bring, but
see you then.
We'll see you guys then. It's crazy. Let us know what you're struggling with. If there's something, you guys want us to talk about next week, but we'll see you guys next week. We love you.
Bye.